There was an amazing podcast I listened to the other day with Paul Lencioni. He writes a lot about team.
Yeah.
And like genius zones and things like that.
Yeah.
And he talked about we actually grow most when we're in community. You know, it's interesting that when we're in workplaces that they're called companies.
Yeah.
Because that is actually, when you take back the root word, that is all about company, like being with people and rubbing up against people and going, how do I grow? How do I work through this? To make it super, super simple is what do you do in a hard situation?
Yeah.
So, and it's often what you're taught or what's modeled to you. A lot of these personal development things are just how we have grown up and how we've been influenced in life and who has influenced us, and the situations have been out of our control.
Yeah.
But even though things have been out of your control, as you become an adult, it's how are you responding and how are you working through those things? Are they serving you or are they hindering you?
We are child development obsessed, business besties and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzie Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist,
and this is the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. In today's episode, Em and I are going to talk about specialising and trying to figure out when is the right time to specialise and if specialising is even something that you want to do.
Yeah, it's a big topic, a big question that lots of people in allied health think about.
It comes up a lot.
Particularly a lot of species, even the species that work with me or my mentees, they say, how did you know that you wanted to do preschool language therapy?
Yeah.
How did you know that you wanted to do literacy?
Yeah.
And the answer is I didn't.
Yeah, that's right. Neither did I.
And with preschool language therapy, particularly that came about with having kids. So that was something that was a complete surprise. I mean, you know, I always worked on language therapy, but when I had children, I was doing the daily motions with them, and obviously it was being reinforced to me how important language is or was, and it was very relevant to their ages. And so then that's sort of what directed my interest at that time, and that has stuck for the last 4 years. But if you had asked me before I had children, would that be my interest? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite niche, and this is something we've spoken about, that we're both doing something quite niche. I'm doing Pilates for kids and you're doing preschool language.
Yes.
So that's even like, you know, a specialisation within a specialisation, isn't it? But what did you want to do when you graduated? I wanted
to do literacy.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what I did do. I just really loved working with the school age clients. And again, this is not, I didn't hate working with younger kids or anything like that. Like, I was a generalist, but then I had that interest and I made sure that my PD was around literacy.
Yeah.
Because I was so interested in it. And also, I think I had 2 lectures on literacy at uni.
Yeah.
And so I really had to do my own professional development for that and for that area. And I would say it's an area that most speechies come out of uni saying, I don't know what to do with a child who's over 8.
Yeah.
I don't know how to help them. And it's something we have to work on ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, with professional development and mentoring and coaching and training.
Yeah.
But that's what I did. And so when I opened up Speak About, we had a big focus on that as the clinic is a reflection of me at that time. And so we specialised in literacy, and we were known for that in the Hawkesbury because the local speech therapists would see children up to about 6 to 8 and then refer to us, even the local species, because we were then known to have the appropriate strategies and tools and methods to see a child till about 16 or 18 years of age, depending on their diagnosis and situation.
Yeah.
And that is a skill that we weren't taught at uni.
Yeah.
So I would say I specialised in that. But
so you wanted to do literacy. And can I just ask maybe a silly question? Is preschool language pre-literacy?
It leads into pre-literacy. Yeah. So you've got your language skills, which is your receptive and expressive language.
Yes.
Then you have pre-literacy, which is like rhyming, hearing sounds at the beginning of words. Speech sounds are linked to that a lot. looking for your name or the letter of your name, in words, and having sound awareness. That's what it is. It's not knowing the alphabet, not being able to sing the alphabet song. It's hearing sounds in words and knowing how to manipulate sounds. And then you use that sound foundation to then go into doing literacy, which is spelling, reading, writing. Reading comprehension is a component of that as well. And so then that's the skills you need for school. And so it all does link together. Like communication, it's just building blocks.
So and it's kind of like a natural
progression. Yes. And so that's why as well I saw how important preschool language was, because on the if you're having sort of like a timeline of development or if you're picturing like a wall and building blocks, you've got, like your feeding skills are at the bottom, early language, which is talking and sounds, and then from that you go to preschool language, and then from preschool language you build your speech sounds, which is your pronunciation and your clarity, pre-literacy, literacy, and then school age language, and it all builds. And so if you're missing that building block of preschool language, it is so detrimental.
It's so, I find that really fascinating, because it's very similar to what I've done, because I'm working with kids and I've like really niched down to Pilates. Why do I work with Pilates? Because it's the foundation to motor. Like it builds the foundation to motor. So it builds our core strength, and without core strength, we can't progress on our gross motor skills. And when we can't progress on our gross motor skills, we can't progress on our fine motor skills. So it's kind of like the foundation, and that's essentially what you're doing as well.
That's how we've picked out Aishas, which is amazing. Again, why we're friends and why we're connected.
That's why we're here.
We have this podcast to discover things about ourselves.
I know. That's cool. Okay.
But I feel like if I go back to looking at my literacy, that wasn't the be all and end all. So while I still had an interest in literacy, and I would say I specialized in that and pushed my professional development in that way, I then still was seeing a general caseload. And I was working with speech sounds, early language, preschool language, stuttering children. But I think I had that focus, and that was where my intention was with my professional development. And so I think specialization can look a little bit different, and it looks different for everyone, but you can be specialized like in that way, where you're just focusing on a certain area, your PD is going that way. Or you could take a job like at an audiology clinic, and that is your entire caseload, and you're just doing children with hearing difficulties. And so I think it's really important to step back a little bit and think this through. Because there is no rush to specialize.
And do you find speechies are the new guys that you're talking to, do they know they want to specialize? Because EPs that come to me are like, I want to do X. Like they're saying they want to specialize it from the get-go. And I'm like, well, just let's get you in and get you working with some clients, because it might change. Like you might be surprised. What do you find with speechies?
I find that I think speechies think they need to know what they want to specialize in.
Maybe everyone does.
But they don't actually need to know, because you can't know until you see every child. And it's not just seeing that child for one session, which is often what you get exposed to on placement. Max 6 sessions with a child if they don't cancel and they come once a week for a 6-week block. But it's really actually seeing that child and completing your therapy process with them to know, I feel like, to give you a good gauge of if you could keep doing this over and over and over again. It doesn't need to be for the rest of your career, but for a period of time. And so to get to that point with children, or, sometimes that takes a very long time, but you really need to be doing clients in a full-time capacity, I would think, for about 2 to 3 years, where you've seen all of the different conditions as speeches and even EPs. You have so many different conditions that you can work on in pediatrics. It's huge. And so you are just actually learning how to generalize in all of those conditions and be really good at them, but walk a child through that entire process, taking them from, they have a 0% accuracy or ability, or they might have a severe severe difficulties, and then moving them up to being within the normal range with their skills, or being at 100% accuracy, however you want to look at it. But that takes a very long time, that process, for some children or conditions. So it's only really once you've walked through that with all these multiple conditions that you have a really good idea. That's what I don't like, and that's what I like.
I reckon that everyone is thinking about specializing, or thinking that they need to specialize, because they're just in a state of overwhelm.
you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty overwhelming, isn't it?
is,
It's like,
yes.
oh, you're going to work in, like, for EPs, like diabetes or, you know, Pilates or neuro. You know, there's just so many different things.
And they're quite big, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
it's a big population. Is that a population? You'd say a big population in that, or is that?
Yeah.
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 That's a big area.
Yeah.
That's actually, is that really specialized then? Or can you specialize within that population of diabetes?
No.
Okay.
No,
So
that
the diabetes
would be-
is the specialization.
Yeah.
And so
Like cancer would be another specialization, or women's health.
yeah,
You know, like
yes,
those.
yes.
And peds is another one.
Yeah. And I guess like when we're thinking about it, really, you're thinking about how long a career is, right? So for men and women, that can be different due to having babies potentially.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we're working until 65 to 67 years of age. By the time we go through, who knows what it will be.
Yep.
But if we stay in the same profession and we say start when we're 22, 23, 24, whatever,
Yeah.
that's almost 40 years in
Yeah.
our profession.
Yeah.
So, you know, to say I want to specialize for the rest of my,
Yeah. A lot of pressure. A lot of pressure.
that's a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I hope you make the right choice.
Well, you don't need to.
You don't
let's
need
just
to.
take the pressure off a little bit. You
Yeah.
don't need to. I did Bachelor of Commerce in Hospitality and Tourism Management. Went back to uni when I was 24. Like, you can change.
Yes, and that's the point.
You're not a
it can,
tree.
I actually think that is what helps keep you in a profession
Yeah.
because things stay interesting and you're still developing your skills. You're
Yeah.
not feeling stale. You're
Yeah.
not feeling like you're sitting at a certain level.
Yeah.
And so how do we keep our motivation and passion? It can actually be to specialize because
Yeah.
that can be over a season or a period.
Yeah.
But also it could be to generalize.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with generalizing your skills
Yeah.
to be able to help. Like, so, I mean, in a pediatric setting, to help the child with speech sounds,
Yeah.
to help the child with language difficulties, to
Yeah.
help the child with stuttering
Yeah.
and early language, that would be like a popular caseload.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with generalizing and helping all those different children.
Because it gives you a sense of variety, and that's okay. Like,
Exactly.
you know, I think there's like everyone thinks you need to be a specialist, and while we have kind of done that, and we have enjoyed that, it doesn't mean that that's the way to go. There's a lot of power in being generalized because you're going to have variety in your caseload. You're going to learn,
It's
a
the
lot
learning
of different
experiences
things.
in the new grad journey that you need.
Yeah.
You get a lot of other skills under your belt with
Yeah.
those different general children.
And you might specialize and then you might change.
Exactly, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point is a career is so long. And so, like I said, I chose literacy, but it wasn't that all my clients were literacy clients.
Yeah.
So it's just thinking about what specialization can look like.
Yeah.
It can look like a professional development focus
Yes.
while you've got a generalist caseload, or it can look like you actually go and work at a place where they only see that caseload.
Yeah.
And so I think the big thing to think about if you're a new graduate and you're asking that big question, like you said, take the pressure off.
Yeah.
But I think a dangerous thing to do would be to specialize in the second option, which I said, which is only see one type of caseload
Yeah.
so early out.
Yeah.
It will give you the skills and you will be brilliant at that caseload.
Yeah.
But what if you decide in 4 years' time to change? You've got, your general skills under your belt,
Yeah.
but you don't have any other experience with any other population.
Yeah.
That could limit you. Hopefully it
Yeah.
wouldn't, but it could.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good to specialize as a new grad if you want to with a PD focus, professional
Yeah.
development focus, but still have other pockets of children that you see. And that might look like working at two different workplaces
Yeah.
to get that, or it might look like doing one workplace and having the focus.
Yeah.
But it's really, I think, just getting that experience under your belt in your first couple of years.
Yeah.
And it really, if you come out of uni and say, all I want to do is specialize, then you sort of go into that general with the vision that it will help you be a better specialist
Yeah.
down the road because you have seen a lot of other populations.
Yeah.
And do you agree? Like in seeing
Yeah.
other populations, that does help you specialize?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you learn, my experience, and I've said it a couple of times, was I worked with the older pops and I was generalized with that. I was working with lots of different
You saw
types.
people in the older part of the lifespan.
Well, I worked in weight management initially. They were ranging from teenagers up to, 70, 80. And then I was working with the older pops, and I really liked, that's what I kind of really liked doing. But it was that work that motivated me and helped me see the opportunity to then get into peds. And I still did both for a really long time. And it wasn't really until I had kids that I started to really niche down, because 1, I was out of the day-to-day operations, 2, I wasn't seeing clients, and 3, I had my own children. So I was living and breathing it. So I did a bit of women's health in there when I was having babies. And I didn't like...
Yeah, you gave me exercises to help with my pelvic floor.
Yeah. Well, I've got the online Mums and Bubs program.
I was doing that with Evie.
Yeah.
And we loved it.
Yeah,
it's such a great way to get them to exercise with you.
But
to do all the
kindies now.
The tummy time, like I was doing the exercise while she was doing the tummy time or the rolling.
Baby development.
Such a good course, such a good program.
Yeah. So I created that when I was, I wrote a pregnancy one, and then I wrote the Mums and Bubs one, because I was going through my postnatal journey, and Flynn hated tummy time. And so I had to get down on the floor, and I just created and I just loved creating it. And then I just sat there and started working it out. And then I started filming it and putting it on Instagram, and everyone was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I did that, but I don't, that's not something I'm actively doing now. I've got the program there. It's online. People can purchase it, but it's not something I actively do now. I'm like really into the, the research and the, working with educators and the courses and everything. So, and very niched around the peds, child development and Pilates. So
I think that's really cool, because you are combining your professional skills with your personal life.
Yes.
And that does help you become passionate about what you're doing and make an impact.
Yeah.
That seems to be a bit of a trend, I think.
Yeah.
You combine what you're personally passionate about or what you're good at in a capacity with your health skills.
Yeah.
And it creates something amazing.
Yeah. Well, because you're doing the lived-in thing, aren't you?
Yeah, you live and breathe it.
That
you have that practical experience or that functional experience and the impact as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I guess then it's not really that you had planned to specialize. It's just seeing how
going with the flow
life goes.
Yeah.
And that's probably what we mean by taking the pressure off.
Yeah.
And just saying, okay, I know that potentially that's something I might be interested in or open to down the track.
Yeah.
I know that if I actually work with lots of other populations now and I see people through the lifespan, that is going to give me a lot of skills to then figure out how I can specialize, when I can specialize, what I can do with that, what that looks like for me.
Yeah.
And again, everyone is different. Everyone's unique. So it's looks different for everyone. And it looks different of when you specialize as well, based on your season of life, whether you're a parent, whether you're single, older, younger, where you're at in your career, what season you're in, and how much time and energy and emotion you can give that specialization.
Yeah.
And because if you're specializing, you're also upskilling yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
So it is an intense process.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of brain energy from you.
Yes, that's right.
You need to have a space in your brain to be able to take in, retain new information, and then implement that and sort of do that cycle to see the change and then reevaluate. Yeah. It's a very big cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's important to note that you can change.
Yeah, just because you're a specialist in one area doesn't mean you then stay in that. And that's, again, talking about how long you're in your career for. Mm-hmm. I've already sort of done 2 specializations, literacy and preschool language. Yeah. I'm sure I'm going to do more.
Yeah.
And it's just like having that.
To it, right?
Yeah, and having that discernment to go, this is what I'm interested in, or just
being curious.
Being curious and following what is interesting to you. But I think as well, it obviously is what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And that's a very big component to career.
Yes.
And fulfillment in your work. Yeah. And I guess sometimes it's looking at the population or, what you're doing with your clients. It's looking at the workplace. But, if you are like a person who tends to be a bit more stable or a bit more cautious, if that makes you happy, then that's okay to stay stable in what you're doing, whether that's generalist, specialist. You don't have to be changing or, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's
It's just considering those things. And I guess
what aligns to your
if you are on a
personality.
journey of professional improvement or personal improvement, you may then decide to change where you might not normally.
Yeah.
But that's because you've got a vision that you want to grow in a certain area or push yourself out of your comfort zone. But again, like that being stable or cautious, that comes back to your personality type.
That's right. Yeah. And like I see myself, and I thought about it because I really like adventure. Like I like traveling and going to new places.
Yeah, me too.
Trying new things.
So exciting.
So fun. Like even just
I know not
flying
everyone
down
thinks
here
that.
to Newcastle and hiring a car and getting in the car and going, oh, I'm going to drive down. And just, like I just love that. And it's really interesting because I have gone down the path of business, of creating new projects, launching new projects. And that's quite exciting. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that because it's a little bit risky, a little bit exciting, or a lot exciting, and it's adventurous. So it's kind of playing to that side of me, that natural side of me that really likes adventure. And yeah, it just suits me. And it kind of hit me recently that when I was like, oh, I'd really like to be traveling.
The travel
like,
bug.
well, I'm allowing myself to entertain that adventurous side through my work, and I think that's why I get so much satisfaction from it. And I feel so blessed to feel that way about work because not everyone does, but it doesn't mean it's right for everyone. You
don't have to have that adventurous side through work either.
No,
that's what you've chosen, and that's what works for you.
Yes,
but it's having that creative outlet to be adventurous.
Yeah,
otherwise you'd probably be feeling a bit off balance or something.
Yeah, so I guess people might not know what their personality traits are, and something that you and I have done for ages is the DISC profile, which shows us what our personality traits are. I don't know whether you want to delve into that, or that might be a whole nother podcast.
That could be another episode, but there are many personality profiles out there that you can do. We just gravitated to DISC and we have liked that, but there's loads you can do. Like there's 1, 2, 3 personalities. There's what is it, Enneagram one. There's
I don't know that
Enneagram
one.
That's when people say like your acronyms,
what
you are.
Yeah.
And so
there's one for all different areas too.
Yeah, it doesn't really, to be honest, to me that's just a tool to help you understand yourself better. And you always have things where you go with a test or a quiz, I agree with that, don't agree with that. But the whole point of that is to bring self-awareness and understanding to yourself and how you respond to situations, how you respond to feedback, motivations, all that type of thing. So whatever quiz works for you, like we've just both found DISC to be helpful.
Yeah, and it might be,
it might be
just journaling each day and going, what am I grateful for? What did I enjoy today?
Yeah, but if you are on that journey of personal development and going where to start, that probably would be a great place to start. Hey, looking at personality profiles and what you are, and then maybe doing it. Like I always then made Mackie do it, or my family do it, because then I was really interested in what other people were.
I don't think Pete did it. I think I sent it to him and he didn't do it.
Pete, do the DISC profile.
I can tell you what it is.
Yeah, no, see, that's the thing. It's not the actual profile. You already know what he is.
Yeah.
But it's basically just helping you understand yourself.
Yeah.
And understand maybe what you would do. So in an example, if you're stable and more cautious, then you might be more wanting to stay. If you start in a generalist role, you might be wanting to stay in that generalist role.
Yeah.
And that is okay.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to push yourself out of your comfort zone, you may need to specialize, but you don't have to specialize.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. And likewise, if you're a different type of, adventurous, a bit more of a outgoing person, a risk taker, then you are the opposite.
Yeah.
And you might be wanting to do lots of different specializations or lots of different populations. That's okay as well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty normal to change. Like we've got a lot of life experiences that happen to us over the years. We've both had children that have triggered us to go down our paths. And then there might be other traumas where you either want to go through a healing process and work in that area and help other people get through it because you've done it, or you might not want to do that because it's triggering for you. I obviously had a stroke in 2015 when I was young. I haven't gone down the path of doing that. I've thought about it. But I'm kind of, I just share my journey on that. But I think it would probably trigger me.
Yeah, that's a really
point.
Good understanding of yourself.
Yeah. I'm not being pulled in that direction. So it's not that every life experience is going to pull you in that direction, but I think that is a natural way to flow because you want to understand it more deeply and want to help other people that are going through it and want to share your perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's obviously going to change over your lifespan based on your experiences and life situation.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a journey. You're a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
That's what we say
Absolutely.
in our speech pathology final assessment, the compass. It's like, how are you a lifelong learner?
Yeah.
You can't really answer that question. It's always
setting
learning.
them up with the skills to be a lifelong learner.
Yes, always learning, remembering that your journey is like water. It can change. If it hits a rock, it goes around it. It's fluid. And it's just sort of working and going through that journey over time.
Yeah.
But I think that the main thing that we want to say to you as a new grad, or if you're early on or having this question is, if you're saying, how do I know to specialize? What should I specialize to? Then you're not at that point yet. You haven't seen enough to know because you just know. And you need to stay more at that general level of seeing and exposing yourself and getting experience.
And it might not even be a conscious decision. It's just something where you go, I'm just going to create this program.
Or just implement a new therapy method with a client, or I'm going to research this. Research this, or I'm going to.
It's like a curiosity, isn't it? And then it's like pulling on a thread and it just keeps going until it might not. But I think until you're at that point, and I think we need to remove the pressure from making a conscious decision.
Yeah, and putting pressure on ourselves.
Yeah.
So if that's you today, have a reflection, have a think about where you're at in your career. Talk to somebody who's a little bit further ahead in the journey of where you are. If there's somebody that you admire or who's ahead of you on the road in terms of, they might have skills or specialized or generalized, ask them and watch what they're doing. And then think about your clients, think about what you're doing and where you are, and just really make intentional decisions about how you want to do your work right now, because then that will help guide you and move you. And just remove that pressure to know that what decisions you make now don't have to be permanent and don't have to be concrete for the rest of your career journey. Things can change and you have opportunities to grow. So if you've really gotten a lot out of this episode and this has been helpful for you, we would love for you to share this episode with your friends, with your peers, with someone who you think would benefit from this. If you could leave us a review, we would love to thank you. We'd love to hear what you're thinking and your thoughts, and subscribe so that you don't miss any more episodes we have coming. Stay tuned.